now the lecture is going to be a little bit simpler than the previous ones, because as we are going higher, the lecture is becoming simpler and simpler. Initially, it was just, too much complex about, this discussion of the cerebral hemisphere, cerebral white matter, cerebral nucleus, and so on and so forth. But now it's just like things are going to be simpler for now. So brainstem, just think of a tree that has a bushy head and a stem with a root and the rootlets. That is exactly the way the nervous system is. If you think of your cerebral hemispheres and your cerebellar hemispheres, that is our large brain and the small brain. The two together, they form the head of the tree. While the stem of the tree is the brainstem we are now trying to talk. While the spinal cord and the spinal nerves are similar to the root of a tree, and it is rootless under the ground. Are you clear? Yes. Good. So you also know that at the stem of the tree you may have some branches emanating out, and those are our cranial nerves, which we'll discuss later on. Are you clear? Those rootlets under the ground are the spinal nerves, which we'll also discuss when we come to discuss the spinal cord. Are you clear? Yes. Good. So now the brainstem is divided into three parts. The superiormost part is what we call the midbrain. Then you have what we call the Pons, which in other textbooks they call it Pons or Baroli. And the last one is what we call the Medulla oblongata. Medulla what? Medulla oblongata, or simply you call it medulla. Are you clear? So we have seen the three structures that join together to form the brain stem. Out of these three, the Pons serves as a bridge for the information coming from above through the midbrain into the Pons, or coming from below through the medulla oblongata into the Pons, and then up there. Are you clear? Because all these informations, whether motor information from above or sensory information from below, they either come from above and go through the brainstem, or come from the external environment or from any other part of our body down to the brainstem. Are you clear? So like the brainstem is just like, a link between the higher centers and the lower centers. Are you clear? So it's a link between high up and the lower down. Are you clear? So now we've seen that brainstem is made up of three things: midbrain, Pons, and medulla oblongata. What are the general functions of the brainstem? When we talk about the general functions of the brainstem, we are talking about the entire functions of the three parts, which later on I'm going to take each part and discuss the internal structure as well as the external structure. Are you clear? But generally speaking, as I said earlier, brainstem is a link between the forebrain and the hindbrain, as well as the spinal cord. Similarly, the brainstem plays a role in controlling other vital functions of our own body. Take, for example, now our breathing pattern. We are just sitting down now, breathing unconsciously. We don't know how we breathe in and out. We are not aware of the breathing. So also our heart is also beating automatically. We don't know when and how, we are not aware of the heart beating. That is one. Another one is like when we want to sneeze, automatically we sneeze or we cough. So the brainstem is responsible for the control of all these autonomic functions That is control of the heart rate, control of the blood pressure, control of the breathing pattern of our own self, control of vomiting. That when we eat something that is no good for our body, we vomit it out. Sneezing, when some foreign bodies enter into our nose, we sneeze them out. Also the coughing reflex, when we cough, foreign body enters into our respiratory airway, we cough it out because the body doesn't like it. So all these are controlled by the brainstem. Similarly, the gag reflex, when we now try to gag some liquid into our mouth, the gag reflex is also controlled by the brainstem. And similarly, the swallowing, when we eat, we tend to eat many things. So these things that we eat, we swallow, automatically it goes, the food that we eat goes into our GIT. All these are controlled or regulated by the brainstem. But what I was saying in essence is that this is just a general overview of the function of the brainstem, but later on we'll see what are the parts responsible for these different varieties of, or different categories of the function that I've made mention. It also serves as a passageway, as I said before, for the sensory and motor information. So the motor information comes from within the cerebral hemisphere or from the cerebellar hemisphere down into the brainstem to other part of the body, and also information from our different part of the bodies. They pass and go up through the brainstem into the higher centers, that is the cerebral hemisphere or the cerebellum, and other nuclei within the cerebellum or within the cerebral hemisphere. It also serves, the brainstem also serves as an exit of so many cranial nerves. We'll see what are the cranial nerves that exit from the brainstem. Are you clear? Because in the previous lecture I stated that we have about 12 cranial nerves. In some of your textbooks, they will tell you that we have about 13 cranial nerves. But absolutely, we have only 12. The 13th one actually is just a division of one of the nerves that we will discuss later on. Are you clear? So we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. So the brainstem serves as an exit for these cranial nerves. And again, the brainstem is not just sitting, and hanging the larger brain and the small brain, but rather it is being plastered to the cerebellum. That means it's not hanged, I say, but it's attached to the cerebellum, to the two cerebellar hemispheres, by 3 important bundles of fibers. So 3 bundles of fibers connect the brainstem with the smaller brain. Are you clear? These bundles of fibers that connect the brainstem with the cerebellum are what we call cerebellar peduncles. There are 3. The midbrain is connected to the cerebellum through what we call superior cerebellar peduncle. The pons is also connected with the cerebellum through what we call middle cerebellar peduncle, while the medulla oblongata is connected also with the cerebellum through what we call inferior cerebellar peduncle. So we have 3 peduncles, bundles of axons, connecting the brainstem with the smaller brain. That is, so all these peduncles, they carry information either from below or information from above. They pass through these peduncles to distribute those information to different part of the body. Are you all clear? Good. So we have now seen that. So now for me to discuss the brainstem, we need to know a little bit of the external morphology of the stem itself, both anteriorly and posteriorly, before I finally take each part and make a cross-section to see the internal structure of each of these 3 parts of the stem. Are you clear? So basically speaking, the most important aspect now for us, to know, before I now clean this one and draw another diagram, is for us to know the ventral, anatomy of the brainstem. When you look at the brainstem ventrally or anteriorly, you are going to see that it has boundaries, above the brainstem is bounded by the optic tract. If you remember your anatomy very well, the previous lectures, I made mention that we have the second cranial nerve, that is the optic nerve, which crisscrosses at the base of the skull to form the optic chiasma, and then those nasal and temporal fibers, as they go towards, their own side, they now bound, they serve as optic tract, and then so they bound the midbrain there. So the midbrain below, it is bounded by the upper border of the pons, because I said that the pons is lying between the midbrain and the medulla oblongata. So the upper border of the pons marks the lower border of the midbrain. Are you clear? And so this midbrain, if we look at it, it is bounded on either side by bundles of fibers coming from above. If you can remember what I was discussing, the white matter bundles of the cerebral hemisphere, I discussed the coronal radiator, I also discussed about the internal capsule. So the fibers of the internal capsule from either side of the cerebral, if this is the right side, this is the left side, the bundles of each of the internal capsule, they pass downward like that to now form these bundles to form the ventral portion of the midbrain. These bundles of axons coming from the cerebral cortex, serving as coronal radiator, form the internal capsule. From forming the internal capsule, they now come out of the cerebral hemisphere to form part of the ventral structure of the midbrain. These bundles of fibers are called the cerebral peduncles. If you can remember before, I discussed about the bundles of fibers connecting the brainstem to the cerebellum. Those ones are called cerebellar peduncles, and this one is cerebral peduncles because they are coming from the cerebral cortex. That is the origin of this fiber. So they are part of the corticospinal, tract or fibers. Are you clear? Good. So we have now seen that this cerebral peduncle, there are bundles of axons coming from the internal capsule. Are you clear? Good. So if you now look at this ventral aspect, these two cerebral peduncles, they bound space in the midline. You get my point? So the two cerebral peduncles on either side, if this is the right side, this is the left side, so they bound space in the midline. This space, is what we call interpeduncular fossa, because it is a space between the two, peduncles. So since it is a space between the two peduncles, so it is logical to call it interpeduncular. Because it is a group, so it is called a fossa. So we have what we call interpeduncular fossa. So if you are asked in the exam to tell about the boundary of the interpeduncular fossa, you can say that laterally it is bounded by the medial margins of the cerebral peduncles, superiorly or anteriorly, because we are just talking about, we raised it up. So anteriorly it is bounded by the optic tract, and then posteriorly is bounded by the upper border of the pons in the middle line. Are you clear? And the flow is formed by part of the midbrain itself. Are you clear? So now we can discuss clearly about the contents of the interpeduncular fossa. If you look at the interpeduncular fossa, anteriorly, you can remember that we discussed about the pituitary gland. And we said that the pituitary gland is hanging because it is being held by a stalk, known as pituitary stalk. Are you clear? And this pituitary stalk attaches to the tuber cinereum that we discussed before. Are you clear? So the stalk of the pituitary gland is also found in the interpeduncular fossa at the anterior most part of it. Are you clear? So just behind the stalk of the pituitary gland and the tuber cinereum around this side, you have two bodies. Those bodies that we discussed before, the two mammillary bodies, part of the hypothalamic nuclei that we discussed before. I'm sure you are aware of that. So at the back of these mammillary bodies, you have a perforated area. Perforation in the sense that there are small blood vessels that enter into this interpeduncular fossa. So these small blood vessels, they perforate this posterior aspect of the fossa to form what you call posterior perforated substance. And so we must have an anterior perforated substance. So we'll see why it is located. Are you clear? So we have now seen that posterior perforated substance is a perforated area by small blood vessels coming to supply the midbrain and it is lying behind the two mammillary bodies. Are you clear? Good. So, if you now look at still within the interpeduncular fossa, you are going to see that the third cranial nerve emerges from the lateral border, from the lateral borders of the cerebral peduncles. This third cranial nerve, it comes from within the inside. It comes from the inside of the midbrain. We'll see how when I now make a cross section of the midbrain. So as it comes from its own nuclei from within the midbrain, the fibers, the axons, come out of the interpeduncular fossa to go forward and enter into the eyes. Are you clear? Similarly, the fourth cranial nerve. So this nerve that I said, the third cranial nerve, is what we call oculomotor nerve. So this third cranial nerve is called oculomotor nerve because it is motor to the eye. Ocular means eye. Motor means motor, because it makes the eye to move. That is why it is called oculomotor nerve. So the oculomotor nerve is the third cranial nerve. So the fourth one, that one, comes out from behind the midbrain. It is the only cranial nerve among the 12 cranial nerves that comes out from behind and then rounds up and comes forward. Because its own nucleus is far away at the back of the midbrain, so it makes sense to come out, exit. It's easier for it, to come out from behind than from the front. Are you clear? So that is why it is able to come out at the back and then goes round each of these cerebral peduncle and then to come forward and enter into the eye to supply the muscles of the eye. Are you clear? Because there are various nerves supplying the extraocular muscles. There are about 6 extraocular muscles, and they are supplied by 3 different nerves. So these 3 different cranial nerves are the oculomotor nerve, the trochlear nerve, which is the first cranial nerve, and then the other one is the abducens nerve, which we'll see where it exists. Are you clear? So these 3 nerves supply all the 6 extraocular muscles, and then we'll see how when we come to discuss each of the cranial nerve. So we have now seen that the trochlear nerve, it surrounds each of the cerebral peduncle to come forward before it finally goes into the eye. So we have now seen that. So the junction between the midbrain and the pons, there is a group there, or a sulcus. That sulcus, we call it pontomedullary sulcus. We call it what? Pontomedullary sulcus. So there is a group between the midbrain and the pons. You get it? So this group is called, or sulcus is called pontomedullary sulcus. Are you clear? So when we now come to the pons is a little bit convex. You get it? It is convex anteriorly like that, and in the midline it has a group, what we call pontine sulcus or basilar sulcus, because it houses one very important artery here. This artery is known as basilar artery. This basilar artery is as a result of the union of 2 important arteries, what we call vertebral arteries, coming from the aorta. Aortic is from the aortic arch and what have you. So these vertebral arteries, as they unite together, they form the basilar artery. So this basilar artery lies at this basilar group or pontine group in the midline. Are you clear? Before it now finally forms some branches from what we call cycle of Willis, which we will discuss later on when you come to the blood supply of the cerebral hemisphere and the brainstem in general. Are you clear? So all the branches, most of the branches of the cycle of Willis, they come from here, and some they come from other places, which we'll see later on. So on the lateral side of the pons, you have the 5th cranial nerve exiting. This 5th cranial nerve is what we call the trigeminal nerve. We call it what? Trigeminal. Tri because it has 3 branches. Trigeminal nerve, it has 3 branches. When it comes to supply the areas in the face, we'll see what are the branches. But as it exiting from the pons, from the anterolateral aspect of the midpoint of the pons, it exits by 2 routes. Are you clear? I said that it exits from the anterolateral aspect of the midpoint of the pons by two routes. Are you clear? So these are the two routes. So that means trigeminal nerve is both motor and sensory in nature. So it has some motor supply and then it has some sensory supply. Are you clear? So this is the fifth cranial nerve there. And so the other nerves, you know, if you now look at the pons and the medulla here, there's also a junction between the two. That junction is what we call Pontomedullary sulcus or junction. Are you clear? So there's also a groove between the pons and the medulla oblongata. This sulcus is called Pontomedullary sulcus or Pontomedullary junction. At the corner of, at the medial lateral aspect of each of these, there's also an angle there. That angle is also very important when we come to discuss other clinical aspect of the brainstem. This angle is also called pontomedullary angle. Are you clear? We call it what? Pontomedullary angle. Okay? So now from this, you know, junction, there are three cranial nerves that exit from the junction. And these three nerves, they come out from the lower aspect and the upper aspect of the pons. We will see how when we make a cross-section of the pons. So the nuclei of these three cranial nerves are located within the pons. But then they exit at the junction between the pons and the medulla. These three nerves are, number one, the sixth cranial nerve, what is known as abducens nerve. So the sixth cranial nerve here is the abducens nerve. Abducens nerve. So this nerve supplies one of the extraocular muscles. So this nerve supplies only one muscles of the extraocular muscle because there are six. So one of each, which we call lateral rectus, is being supplied by this nerve. While the fourth cranial nerve, as I told you before, supplies also one muscle, that is the superior oblique muscle. So we are only left with four muscles. Those four remaining four muscles are being supplied by the oculomotor nerve. Are you clear? So we have now seen the nerve supply of our six extraocular muscles. So the sixth cranial nerve, that is the abducens nerve, is the first nerve to come from the medial side of that sulcus or junction. Are you clear? So it is closer to the midline. Are you clear? The next nerve to exit from there is the seventh cranial nerve, that's the facial nerve. That facial nerve is motor, you know, and also sensory, supplying, you know, the facial structures and what I do. We'll see how. And then the eighth cranial nerve, which we have said some part of it while we were discussing the internal ear, when I talked about the balancing, the vestibular portion of the vestibulocochlear nerve and the cochlear function for the hearing. You know, while we discussed the lateral lamellus about the cochlear portion of the vestibulocochlear nerve. So the eighth cranial nerve is the lateral most nerve of the three. So now the three nerves are arranged in that order: 6, 7, and 8. Are you clear? So now we've seen these three nerves. So the other aspect of the midbrain, of the brainstem, is what we call the medulla oblongata. If you now look at the medulla oblongata, it's made up of vertically situated swellings. You know, you have two swellings in the midline. You have another two swellings, each one on the lateral side of this midline pair of swellings. Are you clear? So this midline pair swellings are what we call the pyramids. So we have pyramid, right pyramid, we have left pyramid. These pyramids are as a result of coming down of these fibers, these cerebral peduncular fibers coming from the cortex. They pass through the midbrain, pass through the pons, and then they pass through the medulla oblongata. So they conglomerate together, they bundle together to form a large bundle of nerve fibers. So they now form bundles on either side of the midline. These are what we call pyramids, you know. So by the side of each pyramid, there is also, you know, almond-shaped, you know, swellings on either side of each of the pyramid. These almond-shaped pyramid swellings are what we call olives. So we have right olive, we have left olive. In each of these olive now, there is a large nucleus in there, what we call olivary nuclei. Are you clear? So we'll discuss them when we come to discuss the sections of the medulla oblongata itself. So, in the midline here, there is also a sulcus, what you call anterior median sulcus. So we have a sulcus here in the medulla oblongata. This sulcus here is called anterior medullary sulcus. This anterior medullary sulcus is lying between the two pyramids. Are you clear? So now, between each of this pyramid and the olive, there's also another depression or sulcus. That depression is called pre-olivary sulcus because it is before the olive. This is olive of this side. So this sulcus here, this side, is called pre-olivary sulcus. Are you clear? And so we also have another depression just after the olive, and this sulcus here is called post-olivary sulcus. So the pre-olivary sulcus and the post-olivary sulcus, they bound the olivary structure there. Are you clear? So the reason why I'm saying or emphasizing about this is this sulcus is important for the exiting of this cranial nerve that I'm going to discuss now. Are you clear? So from the pre-olivary sulcus here, you have the 12th cranial nerve exiting. That is what we call the hypoglossal nerve. So this nerve is the 12th cranial nerve and it's called hypoglossal nerve, and that nerve supplies the muscles of the tongue. You know, so the muscles of the tongue are divided into about 3 different categories for the substance of the tongue, and also you have other muscles that hang the tongue. You understand? So this hypoglossal nerve is responsible for the supply of all the muscles of the tongue, and that is the hypoglossal nerve, with the exception of one muscle, which you will discuss when you come to discuss the head and neck. Are you clear? So we have now seen that the 12th cranial nerve exits at the pre-olivary sulcus, while there are about 3 nerves exiting from the post-olivary sulcus. The first nerve to exit is the 9th cranial nerve, and that is what we call the glossopharyngeal nerve. So the glossopharyngeal nerve, from the name glossopharyngeal, that means this nerve supplies the tongue and the pharynx. You know, so this nerve is also both motor and sensory. So it supplies the tongue, and also supplies the pharynx from the name. So that is the 9th cranial nerve, and the other one is the 10th cranial nerve, exiting below the point of exiting of the glossopharyngeal nerve, and that is the 10th cranial nerve, which is called vagus. You get my point. So vagus nerve, some may pronounce it as vagus. It's not vagus. You get my point? It's vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, exits from that angle, from that sulcus, and that nerve we said is one of the longest nerve. In fact, it's the longest nerve. That is why it is called a wandering nerve, because it spans across every part of our body. Are you clear? And its major function is just parasympathetic in nature, which we'll discuss later on. So we have seen the vagus nerve. The other one is the 11th cranial nerve, and that is what we call the cranial part of the spinal accessory nerve. So we have this the cranial part of the spinal of the accessory nerve. So we call it accessory nerve. So it has a cranial part and it has a spinal part. So it has 2 portions. So the cranial portion of this nerve exits immediately after the 10th cranial nerve, and so the cranial nerve there exits before it finally joins with the spinal component to form the actual accessory nerve, and then it goes and supply the muscles around the neck and what have you. So this ventral aspect of the medulla oblongata is very, very important in that at the lower aspects, at the junction between the medulla and the spinal cord, that is medullospinal junction, or spinomedullary junction, there is also the decussation of the fibers coming from above. So these corticospinal fibers coming to form this cerebral peduncles, passing through the pons, coming into the medulla, forming these pyramids. At the lower end of this medulla, they crisscross. So 3/4 of all the fibers coming from above on either side, those of the right, they go to the left. Those of the left, they go to the right, and so there is crisscrossing, so that The right side controls the left side, and the left side controls the right side. That is the reason why somebody has a stroke on the right side. The problem is on the left side of the cerebral hemisphere because of this decussation at the ventral aspect of the lower part of the medulla oblongata. Are you clear? So that means about 80 to 85% of all these fibers they cross at the level of the lower aspect of the anterior part of the medulla oblongata. The remaining 1/4 or 15 to 20% of these fibers, they go uncrossed to the ipsilateral side. Are you clear? So now let me just have a break, and then we ask some questions, and then we finally clean this one and draw other diagrams.